Welcome to the Firebelly Social Show. We're focused on talking to food and beverage brands that are on a mission to make the world better.
Duncan Olney here. I am the co-host of the Firebelly Social Show, where we talk with leading entrepreneurs and CEOs and marketing leaders of mission-driven beverage and food brands. And this episode is brought to you by Firebelly. At Firebelly, we make brands more likable and profitable through social media marketing. We provide organic and paid social strategies along with influencer marketing and creative services to help brands get ROI fast. We've been voted one of the top 10 social media agencies in the world by Clutch, and we've helped companies like Netflix, Qdoba, Fiji Water, and many others transform their social media strategies. If you want to establish your brand, expand your reach, and get ROI, let's talk. Go to firebellymarketing.com or contact us at hello@firebellymarketing.com or call 317-557-4460. Now, before I introduce our first ever guest, I want to give a shout out to Eric Deckers, all-around amazing human being who introduced me to this guest, and then Darren Fox at Idea Marketing and Drew Hendricks at Barrels Ahead Marketing, who also, like me, specialize in beverage. So with no further ado, let me introduce you to Jason Falls, who has self-describedly been called a great target for trolls just because of his amazing work. He's a thought leader. He's an expert. I know him as a friend, and we're constantly enjoying each other's humor and directness and bluntness. By day, he's a very advanced marketing leader. And I'm going to ask you, Jason, you're at Cornett, right?
Yes, I am.
Tell us what you do, Jason.
So it's really interesting. We're actually going through an exercise now to redefine like my job title and everything, because I do a little bit of everything. My direct supervisor, our VP for brand performance, who's basically our media director, if to translate that into other agencies, she calls me a chameleon because I kind of jump in and do a lot of different things. My title is director of digital strategy. I'm generally building out, bigger strategic plans and opportunities for the clients that we work with. But I basically oversee the owned and earned sort of brand journalism content marketing piece. I'm not on the creative team necessarily. We're a full service ad agency. So we have, creative directors and art directors and whatnot. But I oversee social media content, public relations, organic SEO, any content marketing that would be sort of a digital marketing, lead gen execution type thing, all kind of falls under what I do.
Awesome. And you are way beyond an aficionado or enthusiast when it comes to bourbon.
And I could probably count about 25 or 30% of my body mass is the result of drinking bourbon. So I like to drink it, and I certainly have worked in and around the industry for a while too.
Jason Falls, 75% human, 25% bourbon.
Well, you got it. There's probably about 20% in there as Little Debbie snack cakes too.
Let me ask you this, Jason. You are an author, several times author. What are you working on now, and when will it be out?
So my new book is called Winfluence, Reframing Influencer Marketing to Ignite Your Brand. And it actually comes out February 23rd. So we're, less than 3 weeks away as we record this. And so it'll probably be on shelves by the time people hear or see this show. And it basically is... it's the first solo book that I've written. As you mentioned, Eric Deckers, who introduced us, was my first co-author on No Bullshit Social Media. Also have a book called The Rebel's Guide to Email Marketing. Those books are about 10, 11 years old. This is my first solo project. I wrote this one after building out several influence marketing case studies for our brands and realizing that the mainstream media and sort of the superficial view of influencer marketing out there is that it's, peace sign and duck lips, pictures of people on Instagram, very superficial, not very, good for business, maybe good for awareness. And I think that's a perception that's painted influence marketing into a corner. And so my argument here is we've got to stop thinking about influencer marketing, the channel, the noun, and start thinking in terms of influence marketing, the verb, the goal, what you're trying to accomplish. And so I kind of go through this argument that we need to, stop looking at it this way and maybe widen the viewpoint a little bit and then turn our heads a little bit to look at it slightly differently, because then we can use it more strategically in a much more broad level. So I hope everybody goes out and buys the book. I think it's got some pretty good insights and advice for folks.
And over the years, Jason, there have been so many times when I've reached out to you and we've gone back and forth. And what I have distilled down from so many conversations is that an influencer has to have some domain expertise. They've got to have some credibility. They've got to have some trust. That's a given. That's the foundation. But more importantly, they've got to be able to influence some outcome, and preferably across the funnel. Is that a good way to kind of like?
That's a very good way to contextualize what I would call using Winfluence or influence marketing rather than influencer marketing. Because if you're doing it from what the book calls the Winfluence approach, is you've got to stop using influencers because they have big audiences and start finding the influencers that have that true influence, that are influential people, not just quote unquote influencers, because the people with influence are the ones who can actually motivate an audience to take action, to try or buy a product, to think differently about an issue. And you got to do a little bit more research, a little bit more homework to zero in on those. But once you do, and you build a relationship with those influential people over time, now you're using Winfluence, you're using influence marketing, you're focusing on what you're trying to accomplish strategically, as opposed to looking at it through that funnel of let's find an Instagrammer with a lot of followers.
I think that you seriously this is a fantastic title, because when we marketeers who are in the know of what influence can do, when we talk about this opportunity to our clients, and when we speak with influencers, we try to tell them that, man, it can't be all about you, and it can't be all about the brand. It has got to be a win-win-win, because the brand has to get something out of it. You got to get something out of it, and your audience has to get something out of it. I mean,
yeah,
that's
you're absolutely right, and I'm glad you like the title. I can tell you a story about the proposed title that got shot down. Well, I shot it down, but I'll tell you that in a minute. So you're exactly right, and I think what this goes back to is this idea that you have to build longer term relationships with influencers that you work with, or influential people that you work with over time. Because when you focus on long-term relationships versus short-term transactional, here's some money, go post this about my product. When you focus on a partnership over time, you're in it for the relationship. So it's a give and get situation. You are trying to build value for the influential person that you're partnering with, so that they get good benefit out of the relationship. And it might be money, but it might be other things, and it might not include money at all. But as you build that relationship, then they become a true partner and are building value for you as well. And that benefits their audience. It benefits you. It benefits them. It benefits your audience. And so it becomes that win-win-win-win-win Winfluence.
I love it. I love it. And it's interesting. I love the fact that you put in that it's not all about comp, of financial comp, because depending on the industry you're working on, you'll find it could be all about comp. And some situations, man, it's all about access. They want access to what you're doing because that gives them the win with their audience. I was the first one to know about that new development, on the automobile, or I was the first one to get access to that new sour beer. So, I mean, and I think that that's a good piece of advice for all, the marketeers that are listening out there, to think about as Jason says, the long-term relationship. It's like, don't do these 1 month, 2 month deals, man. Like, get into a year-long deal.
Yeah. And it really underlines your point there in the B2B space, because I've been a quote unquote marketing influencer for several software companies over the years. And sometimes they would come to me and say, we'd like to pay you for content. But I would go back to them and say, look, I'm not worried about you paying me for content. Can I have access to your CEO? Can I do an interview with them? Can I, know more about your product? Can I give you feedback on the product? Can I be part of your R&D team as just someone who can give you feedback on what you're doing? because that interior access is incredibly valuable to me as a marketing voice or influencer, if you want to call me that, because then I can take that knowledge and that access and turn it around to my audience and build more affinity for my content. So in the B2B space, it works really, really easily for that. You don't have to pay influencers. You just kind of give them access. But yeah, it can work in the B2C space as well, whether you're providing them with just product or you're providing them with opportunities or trips or one thing or another. There might be cost involved, but you may not necessarily have to write them a check.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that, going back to an earlier point, we were auditing a person in the beverage space that has a very large audience, and about partnering up with them for a winery client. And what we found, Jason, was 70% of the audience is not in the US.
Mm-hmm.
And possibly 40% of the audience is not real. It's, they're bots. Yep. And out of the 60% audience that's real, 20% are inactive. So you're looking at the geography, you're looking at the reality of these followers, and without even looking at the content and whether it aligns with the brand strategy, we're already starting to see this kind of like boiling down. And so when someone's asking for this comp versus this deliverable, then you're like, okay, the numbers don't make sense.
Yeah. And I really loved, I don't know if you saw this or not, but there was a TikToker a few months ago who, published, something online complaining that a brand had reached out to her with her 800,000 followers and offered her, $1,000 or something like that for her content, or to do content for them. And she was making fun of them because I have 800,000 followers and that's far more valuable and blah, blah, blah. Well, and then a media planner buyer, young lady, probably in her mid 20s, who's just working at an agency somewhere, posted a response to the influencer's complaints and said, well, actually, if you look at the actual views of your videos on TikTok, you don't have 800,000 views, you have 50,000 views. And if you look at the cost per thousand of about $10, which is what people are paying for social media advertisements this day, and you do the math, it actually equals your average videos are worth about $1,000. So you're actually being offered a fair amount of money for your content. And so there are people out there in the influence space that have an assumption of how important and how big they are, but the reality of the media measurement is they don't produce quite as much as they think. So knowing that as a brand going in is helpful, but you also have to, be go gingerly on how you communicate that to the influencer, because you don't want to damage their ego, because then they're going to be pissed off and not want to work with you. Yeah. But it's a good discussion to have with them so they understand the economics of it all.
Yeah. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you who some of your favorite beverage brands are and why.
Wow. It's funny because I'm not just obviously a consumer of all different types of beverage brands, but I'm also in the marketing advertising world. So I like different brands for different things. In terms of what I like to consume, my favorite brands, I'm a Diet Pepsi addict. I can't get enough Diet Pepsi. I've been trying for years to have someone from PepsiCo install a fountain in my kitchen, and they won't. And I don't understand why, because if you did the math on all the Diet Pepsi I've bought over the years, I probably own about 10-15% of that company. But so Diet Pepsi is my drink of choice. However, I really enjoy, trying a lot of different, beverages, and it could be sodas. Like, for instance, one of our clients at the Buffalo Trace Distillery, the Sazerac family of bourbons, is a client of ours. We've just helped them launch Freddie's Old Fashioned Soda, which Freddie Johnson is kind of the legendary Bourbon Hall of Fame, VIP tour guide at Buffalo Trace Distillery, and just an unbelievable opportunity to turn his personality into a brand. They've got root beer and ginger ale that you can order online at the Buffalo Trace Distillery gift shop. And my son, who's a big Barks root beer guy, I brought the Freddie's Old Fashioned root beer home to him, and he took one sip and said, well, I've got a new favorite root beer. Like, it's really good stuff. So, but I even love going back down memory lane and, finding a can of Fanta grape. And, I just really enjoy kind of the the thought process and the memories that they sort of emulate. Of course, I work in the spirits industry, and I work with a lot of bourbons. Bourbon is my alcoholic beverage of choice. I love a lot of brands because of their marketing. Obviously, the Buffalo Trace Sazerac family of bourbons are the brands that I work with. So if I were to give you those that I like, I'm a big fan of Weller. Weller's a great brand. I love it. I love 1792 bourbon. I work a lot with them and I really enjoy their expressions. But outside of that, to just be, fair, I drink, more than just the people that I work with. My dad and I are both Elijah Craig bourbon fans, have been for a long time. I have worked with and really enjoy Maker's Mark from time to time. It's another wheated bourbon like Weller, so I enjoy more bourbons in the wheated category. But there's a lot of new brands that are popping up out there that I really enjoy too. Jephthah Creed is an actual distillery here, not too far from my house, that's got an interesting new set of products out there on the market too. So lots of good stuff out. Oh, the other one that I really like that I tried recently was Boone County bourbon. They've got, really good marketing, really good story. They're up in Northern Kentucky and they've got a really good, I think it's an 18-year expression. Maybe. I'm not real sure if I'm right on that, but Boone County bourbon, look that one up.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. I was just telling you, I know I love the distillery in Park City, Utah called High West.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got a product that is a blend of bourbon, rye, and scotch that is absolutely to die for. But I love what they do with their marketing. They definitely market that mountain lifestyle.
Yep.
And that's interesting because I have been to Park City so many times and didn't even know that they were there. And now when I drink it, I literally feel like I'm drinking Park City.
That's cool.
What are some for beverage brands? Obviously you've got a significant experience here. What are some best practices for beverage brands, specifically with social?
Well, I mean, I think, the what I would say is depending upon your category and depending upon the type of beverage you have, you're probably not super, super unique. There's probably a lot of other beverages out there like you. They may not be exactly like you in taste or presentation or whatnot. But when someone is, when you think about your category, whether it's root beer, whether it's fruit drinks, whether it's milk, whether it's bourbon, whether it's wine, there's other, brands out there. So what you have to really do, I think, to engage an audience, especially in social, is you've got to create, those emotional ties, those emotional reasons why people would want to associate with you. You've got to develop a lifestyle version of a magazine or content online, images, a mood that you're trying to express that says, this is our brand. This is who we are. And if this is what you aspire to, or if this lines up with your personality, we're probably the brand for you. It's really about connecting that lifestyle and that emotional cues with an audience to kind of, get them at least interested in you. And then hopefully they try your product, they like your product. And if they like the product and the experience with your brand aligns with their expectation, then you've got yourself a fan.
Awesome. Thank you. That's great advice. I wanted to ask, Jason, you are not a normal human.
I'll take that as a compliment.
It takes one to know one. You are definitely an interesting, weird dude, which is all for the better. I mean, there's one of the reasons I remember you probably like me is because I just came up to you and said, Jason, you don't know me, but we're going to be friends. But what's something quirky about you that, people don't know about?
Quirky about me. My kids would tell you that I'm anal retentive, but I'm not actually anal retentive. I'm tidy. I don't like, disorganization and like a dirty house. I like the house to be clean. I like for people, especially my kids, to put their crap away and don't leave dishes laying around. And I didn't think when I was a kid that I would ever be that way. But because my mom liked the house neat and whatnot, and I don't like to lose things, I like to be organized and have things in place. So I'm not anal retentive and I'm not OCD, but I appreciate tidiness. And so I strive for that in my house. And I'm trying to teach my children how to help me with that what I'm striving for.
I mean,
not very successfully yet, but they would say I'm OCD or I'm anal, but I'm not. I just like things to be tidy.
I can feel you on that, man, especially when you're going through a lot of busyness in your life, personally, professionally, like having a Zen space that doesn't have like distractions visually, is both aesthetically pleasing and functionally, candidly helpful. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
uh,
I've become a bit of a minimalist in my older age. I'm like trying to get rid of things and clear desks and take stuff to Goodwill and give away stuff that I don't touch or use anymore. Of course, I say that with a shelf full of trinkets and crap back here, but at the same time, I really just enjoy clean, neat, austere working spaces and living spaces.
Wonderful. One last question, Jason. One piece of advice, like parting advice for beverage brands.
Wow. Um, there's a lot of noise out there. And in terms of your marketing, especially with social marketing, particularly with the opportunity to engage influencers around your brand, you've got to come up with something pretty magical these days to stand out as signal in that sea of noise. I think influencers and influencer marketing is a way to do that. And if you can find one that has that really nice brand alignment, not only with your brand and your values, but the atmosphere, the mood, the lifestyle that you're trying to portray, that can be a real magical thing, because if their audience likes them for that reason and you align with them, their audience is probably going to like you too. So if you haven't looked into building some influencers, and I'm not talking about going out and paying for posts, I'm talking about trying to cultivate a relationship with them, send them some product and just ask them for feedback. Don't ask them to post about it. Just ask them for feedback. Start the conversation with them and build from there. I think you'll see that it'll be really valuable for you in the long run.
Jason, thank you so much for being my friend and for coming on today and for keeping all of us honest with your no bullshit approach. I think that this has been wonderful. For those of you that need a reminder, check Jason out. Jason, it's jasonfalls.com.
jasonfalls.com and Jason Falls everywhere. You can find all the book information on that site as well. So yeah, it's all there.
And it's Winfluence, and it'll be out in a few days.
Yep.
And check it out. I can already tell you, I from knowing Jason and keeping up with his book, that it's going to have a lot of great frameworks that you can use and insights, to run a program that is going to generate some actionable and meaningful results for you, outcomes for you. So thank you so much. If you've missed it, this is the Firebelly show, where we talk to leaders in the food and beverage space, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Firebelly Social Show. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.